Hey everyone, it's Leanne. Welcome to another video on my channel. Today I'm making a card for my nephew. His birthday's coming up and I'm really excited to make this card for him. I'm going to do an oversized card, so this is an A9 size card. So let me show you the materials I'm going to use. I'm going to start with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock, and this is from Staples, just their regular brand. This will make the A9 size card. So all I need to do is start simply with an 8.5 by 11 sheet, fold it in half, and I have my card. So that's actually an easy setup for the card. For paper, I'm going to use some spare paper that I have in my craft drawer. I have this textured blue paper that I bought from Michael's, and I also bought this textured teal paper from Michael's as well. It has sort of like a wood grain to it. You can see a bit up here, it has a bit of a wood grain texture. So I'm going to use these two papers for the card base. I'm going to be using the scalloped rectangle stackables from Lawn Fawn. I want to use the biggest sizes to create the frame for my card. And so this is the picture I'm going to use. It's of my nephew, and I went to see him this summer, and this is the picture that I took right after I just got there. I had traveled all night. I was weary and tired from traveling on the plane, and I was a mess, but I was so excited to see him, and we took this really cute little picture, and I treasure this. So I want to send this to him on the card because I want him to know who's sending the gift. So I think if he sees the picture of us together, he'll remember his aunt and know that the card is from me, not just by writing my name. So he is going to be 2 this year, and it's crazy how time flies. So I thought a photo card would be great for him. So I have my picture that I'm going to use. And then I'm also going to use these Everyday Sentiment banners from Lawn Fawn as well. And then I want to add in some of the Lovable Legend stamp set from Lawn Fawn. I thought they were really fun, and I thought I could pick up some of the reds from the picture and use that into the animals, the sea animals. And with the blue background, I thought the red and the blue, red's his favorite color, it would be a really nice contrast and be fun for the card. I also have the cutouts for those. And for ink pads, I'm actually going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink for the COPIC coloring. And then for the stamping of the sentiment, I'm going to use VersaFine in Onyx Black. I want to use that on the textured teal paper. I did a test, and it's not textured enough that it makes a mess of the letters. I can still do a good job of stamping it. But with VersaFine, I can get those fine details, where Memento isn't as good on the fine details. It's great for general stamping, but for those fine details I want to make sure that that sentiment comes out good, so I'm going to use my VersaFine ink pad for that stamping. So let's get started. I'm excited to create this card. So to start the card, I am going to create the base first. I'm going to start with that 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and I have this paper folder and score by Martha Stewart. This is the large one, and I like this one because I can also create envelopes to match. And so once I create my card with this, I'm going to create the matching envelope. And so on the back, it has a slide out, and it has the tool for creating the matching envelope for the card size that you need, which is really nice. Now, on the inside here, I have, I'll just lift this up so you can see, I have the measurements of different card sizes, and it's handy that it comes with that. It tells you what size to start with and what size to score at, and so they have just inserts that you can stick in here as just a guide. So I have that, and I'm going to create that A9 card. So it says to score the card at 5.5, which is half of 11. So I'm just going to lay this down and find the 5.5 mark, which is here. And then score this. I usually like to do it about 2 to 3 times, and then it folds in like this and should give me a perfect fold. I like to hold it just to make sure that it goes straight. And sometimes if it doesn't line up, if my paper shifted when I'm scoring, I can always trim up the edges. I'm going to use the folder just to score the edge because it is cardstock, so it's a bit thick. And then that gives me my folded card. So this is at a finished size. This is 5.5 by 8.5. Now I want to prepare my card base first. So I want to put this paper on and get this set up so that my card base is coated in this blue cardstock. So I'm going to use my tape roller. I'm just going to flip this over, which I can see the pattern on the back, and that's going to be really handy for lining up the card. So I'm just going to put tape around the edge. And then I'm just going to run some tape across the center. Now I want to put this down on the back here of the blue cardstock, but I want to make sure that I keep it as straight as possible so that when I cut this, the lines match up and they're not crooked, especially with a patterned paper, because you're going to notice if the lines, if it's like not straight and your zigzags are going sideways, you're going to notice that. So I'm just going to push that down and then trim it. When I trim the card, I'm going to open it up. I don't want to try to cut through 2 layers when I know that they line up okay. I'm just going to trim just that flat layer. So I like to tuck the edge of my blade on the edge of the cardstock and push the ruler up to it, and that way I know I'm hitting the exact edge and I'm not going to trim too much or not enough. So now the only part I have to worry about is the overhang here. And so I'm going to fold my card up, and then I'm going to put this together the same way, lining it up with the edges of my knife to the edge. And then when I cut this, I'm just going to pivot my knife out a little bit, just a tiny bit of a lean towards the outside of that edge, because I don't want to accidentally cut the fold line and have the card fall apart. And so here's my card base. So that's looking really good. So here's the general layout that I'm thinking for my card. And so I'm going to work on this frame area next. And so I'm using the largest scallop frame that's available in the Lawn Fawn set. And I want to pop that out of this teal colored stock here. So I'm just going to use some Post-it tape to hold this in place. And I'm going to run this through my Sizzix Big Kick machine. And then I'm just going to trim up this edge too, so I don't have to put that through. Now I have this run through my Sizzix Big Kick machine, but before I pop this out, I want to create the frame. So right now I have one entire piece. Now one way I could do it would be to nest one of the extra frames inside and create a double layer to create that frame, but instead I'm going to use these edges as my guide to trim along, just to create a really thin frame. And then I'm going to use this as my guide just to start those edges. So now here I have my frame, and one thing is these little eyelets sometimes catch the circles and you have to pop them out. I guess there was just the one, and so this will create the border for my picture. Now to create the frame, I have the frame already popped out, but it's really thin and I want to put these 2 pieces together if I can, and that'll make it easier for positioning on the card. So what I'm going to do is try to trim down the photo so that I can attach it between the eyelets and the edge of this frame. It's not going to give me much room, but I might be able to tack it with some glue enough to just get it in place. So I'm going to trim off the picture first. So I'm going to find the composition that I like, and maybe I can cheat and use one of the cut edges already. Maybe the one down at the bottom I can use to line up my picture. And I think I might be able to get away with this left side edge too, where it is wide enough that it's underneath the frame, but not too wide that it's hitting these eyelets. I want that cardstock to shine through. So what I'm going to do is, using a Sharpie, I'm just going to mark where the trim line needs to be, and I think it needs to be under these eyelets but over the edge of the frame. So on this side, I'm going to slide this down carefully. That is going to be about here. And then if I go in the other direction, sliding my frame up just a bit, that's going to be about here. And then I'm going to do the same for the other sides, but I'm going to wait till I cut this first. So checking the frame, that worked good. That cut enough that it falls underneath those eyelets. And I just need to trim a little bit off the top that it's overhanging. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat on this, and I'm just going to mark a couple dots in the middle of where it does overhang with the eyelets, and use that as my guide to cut underneath that. Okay, so now I have my picture fitting just inside the frame where I want it to be and not overlapping on those eyelets. So I think what I'm going to do is put the picture down first and then put the frame over top. I think I can get a little bit better adhesion that way, and individually layered. I'm going to save that for now. I'm going to work on my sentiment piece next. So I'm going to use the centerpiece from my frame, and I'm going to go pop out a sentiment banner to use next in my Sizzix. So the sentiment I want to use is "Have an unbelievable birthday." And so that should just fit on this sentiment banner here. So I'm just going to line it up and then try stamping it in. So everything looks about straight. I'm going to do a test stamp just to make sure that it's good. So I'm going to use a scrap piece of paper here. And then if I bring my banner in, I should be able to tell if it will fit. And it looks like it's just going to fit, so that's great. Normally I would stamp my larger word first and then put my supporting words around it, but because this is a tight fit, I want to make sure that everything fits properly. And so by doing it this way, I can make sure that it's centered. So I'm going to come in with the VersaFine ink. That's what I want to use for this stamping. And I think that looks pretty good. There's a few lines that are a little weak on the center here, but I'm going to take a micron pen and just touch those up. I have a micron in a 005, and so that should be enough just to clean up those lines, fill them in enough that they don't look like they're gapping. So now I'm going to stamp the critters that I want to color. So I'm going to start with the Kraken from the Lovable Legends stamp set, and I'm going to use the Memento Tuxedo Black ink, which is this ink here, just because it is really good with Copic colors. So now I'm going to punch these out using the coordinating dies, and I'm just going to run these through my Sizzix Big Kick machine, and then my critters should be ready. So here's a rough look at the assembly of the card that I'm planning. So I'm ready to start putting elements together. So I'm going to work on my picture first, and then put everything else together after that. So I'm going to use my tape roller to put my picture down. So I'm just going to try to center this as much as possible, and it's pretty easy because there's not a lot of space between the left and right side, so I can pretty much see that it's even. Now I need to put my frame down. This is going to be a little bit more tricky. I am going to try and use some two-way tape on this, just because that would be the fastest way to get it put in place. So I'm going to cut this into thin strips and put along the edge. And the two-way tape I'm using is the Scotch brand. I picked this up at Staples, and it's got a good adhesion to it, so it should be all right for this card. So now I need to put this into place, and I'm definitely going to use my X-Acto knife for this, just to keep it up off the paper until I'm ready for it to stick, because it is really sticky. And so now I'm ready to add the sentiment on. And I'm going to put my critters on just to see the placement of them. I kind of want this one to break the frame a little bit to bring the eye down into the message area. And then I'm going to have my little sea creature here overlap the sentiment banner to just create that direction, that eye movement. You start at the top, you look at the picture, and then come down, read the sentiment, and then open the card. I'm going to put these guys on foam tape. That's really fun. I just like the little pop that foam tape gives. I have a new roll here, so I'm just going to put a little bit on each. And I'm just going to put a little bit on the tentacles, just so that they don't push down too much, and that holds the weight or just the extension of those as well, just so it all feels elevated. And now before I put this guy on, I do want to make sure that I get the sentiment down, so I'm just going to run a strip of tape with my tape roller that's also two-way tape, two-sided tape, and just get that into place. So again, just because the card width, there's so much or so little space between the edges of the card, it's pretty easy to line it up and drop it into place. And now I can put some foam tape on this little guy. So my card is just about done. I have a couple little touches that I want to add. I won't be doing any glitter on this card, but I do want to use my white gel pen and just give the illusion of a sea theme down here. And so I'm going to use the stamp idea that comes in the Lawn Fawn stamp set. I'll show you what that looks like. So just looking at the elements here, I really like these bubbles. And so I'm going to draw these circles, but I'm just going to use my white gel pen. I could white emboss these, or clear emboss with white embossing powder, but I'm kind of concerned about the background texture, so I'm just going to draw those. So there you have it. There's a look at my birthday card for my nephew. And so this is an oversized card, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. It's an A9 sized card, so that's 5.5 by 8.5. Literally just an 8.5 by 11 folded in half gives you this size card. And it's really nice to put the picture. I think he'll really like it, and it'll be extra special because it's him and I, and he'll know that it's from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is a little bit of a different card, but it was really a lot of fun to make. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you're notified as I post more videos. Thank you so much for watching.